An elite athlete stepped outside her home for a routine morning jog through a gated community, navigating a grid of suburban sidewalks in broad daylight. She carried no cash or cards. Her only connection to the grid was her smartphone and a GPS-enabled smartwatch, actively recording her live biometric data and broadcasting her exact coordinates. This chart tracks her heart rate. For 7 minutes, her pacing was perfectly normal. Then, at 7:42 a.m., her heart rate spiked for 4 seconds before the signal dropped. The final ping froze on a public sidewalk, exposed to the sun. For profiling analysts, this disappearance is a contradiction. The geography was secure, the subject was physically capable, and the monitoring was constant, yet her trail ended in an instant. To understand the anomaly, we have to look at her baseline. She was a disciplined marathon athlete living in North Carolina. She knew every inch of her neighborhood, having run the same 3-mile loop hundreds of times. On this morning, she told her family she would be back in 15 minutes for breakfast. She tied her sneakers and stepped out into the neighborhood, leaving her physical identification behind. At peak physical condition, she was strong and fast, capable of outrunning most ordinary threats. The streets were active. Residents were walking dogs, children waited for school buses, and security cameras recorded the sidewalks. Physically removing a person from a street with this many witnesses and cameras without being seen leaves investigators with a total absence of physical evidence. 20 minutes passed. When her family realized she was late, they called her phone. It went straight to a dead tone. Within an hour, local police deployed tracking teams to sweep the entire 3-mile loop. Police began the search by pulling the live satellite data from her fitness application to map the final minutes of her run. This map shows her route. The tracking path confirms she was running at a steady, rhythmic pace down her usual street. Reaching the cul-de-sac entrance, the pacing abruptly shifts. She accelerated to a dead sprint for exactly 50 yards, followed by a complete stop. Police secured those exact coordinates. The concrete was clean. No signs of a struggle, no dropped items, and no tire tracks on the asphalt. The data records a sudden, high-speed physical event, while the physical environment shows no signs of a disturbance. Detectives initially suspected a vehicle had pulled up alongside her as she reached the cul-de-sac. They audited every smart doorbell camera covering that intersection during the 15-minute window. They identified delivery trucks and local commuters, but no unknown or suspicious vehicles were seen entering or exiting the neighborhood. This police canvassing map pinpoints 2 separate neighbors who were working in their yards less than 80 yards away from her final GPS ping. Both neighbors stated the morning was silent. They heard no shouting, no slamming doors, and no accelerating engines. Between the doorbell cameras and the witnesses, the window for an abduction was virtually non-existent, yet the physical evidence of her departure remains missing. Later that evening, federal analysts cross-referenced her digital accounts to check for any delayed server uploads. Suddenly, her public profile updated with a new activity map, showing her device moving through a dense, swampy forestry reserve. This new location was over 35 miles away from the cul-de-sac where her morning run supposedly ended. Looking at the topographical data, the tracking layout is completely erratic. The device moves in sharp zigzag patterns through the wetlands, fluctuating between 15 and 35 miles per hour. Too fast for a runner, too slow for a vehicle. This data signature breaks from conventional forensic analysis. It suggests either a catastrophic malfunction of the GPS architecture or a sophisticated manipulation of the digital grid. Search teams immediately deployed drones and tracking dogs into the remote wetlands. The dogs picked up a brief trace of her scent near an old logging trail. That path ended at the edge of a deep swamp. The search yielded no clothing, no smartwatch, and no phone from the deep, murky mud. In the years since, her accounts have remained frozen. Authorities have repeated the camera audits and cataloged thousands of theories, but the case remains unresolved. The investigation still hinges on 2 questions. What triggered the vital spike in those final seconds? And did she find a physical blind spot in her neighborhood or fell victim to a digital exploit? A trained athlete disappeared from a heavily monitored street without leaving a trace. It forces us to question if the digital footprints we rely on for security are actually showing us the truth.